Okay, I will call the special town meeting, March 21st, 2024, to order at 7 p.m. If we could have ask for nominations from the floor for a moderator.
Jason Bucksbaum, please.
Do I have a second to Jason Bucksbaum?
Second.
Joe, do I have a second to Jason Bucksbaum being the moderator? Yes, Joe seconded it. You're now president of the company. Are there any other nominations from the floor? Are there any other nominations from the floor? Are there any other nominations floor? Hearing none, Jason, you are our moderator.
Thank you. Welcome all. I'd like to ask the first selectman to read the warning of the meeting. I'm sorry, the clerk to read the warning of the meeting.
Notice and warning special town meeting, Town of Southbury, March 21st, 2024, 7 p.m. Notice is hereby given to the electors of the Town of Southbury and those qualified to vote at a town meeting that a special town meeting will be held on Thursday, March 21st, 2024, at 7 p.m. in room 205 of the Southbury Town Hall to consider and act upon a resolution to reallocate $240,000 of the ARPA grant to Southbury Ambulance. Jeffrey A. Manville, First Selectman, Justin Betty, Selectman, Jason Bucksbaum, Selectman, Gregory Kuhn, Selectman, Timothy O'Neill, Selectman, Holly Sullivan, Selectman, dated at Southbury, Connecticut, this 13th day of March 2024.
Thank you. Now I'd like to ask the first selectman to read the resolution.
Resolution resolved that upon the recommendation of the Board of Finance and the Board of Selectmen, this town meeting hereby approves the reallocation of $240,000 of the ARPA grant to the Southbury Ambulance.
Resolution having been moved, is there a second to the resolution? Second. Can you state your name just so that they can take it down?
Isabel Burke.
Isabel Burke. Okay. So at this point, if anyone would like to speak for or against the resolution, you can come up and speak. I just ask that you give your name and address. So is there anyone here that'd like to speak for or against the resolution? Anyone like to speak for or against the resolution? Does anyone have any comments to make concerning the subject matter of this town meeting? Excellent. In that case, we'll call for a vote. All in favor of the resolution signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Aye. Any opposed, nay? The ayes have it. The resolution passes. Chair will entertain the motion to adjourn.
So moved.
Motion to adjourn by Selectman Betty. Is there a second? Mr. Boritz, second. All in favor of adjournment, signify by saying aye. Aye. Any opposed? Town meeting adjourned.
Okay. Next up, I would like to call the Southbury Board of Selectmen regular meeting, March 21st, 2024, to order at 7:03. Can we have the Pledge of Allegiance? I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Just for the record, Selectman Sullivan, she is with us remotely. Next up is the public comments, limited to 2 minutes. If anybody would like to make a public comment, please come up. I will turn the podium around. Turn the mic on.
Is it on this time?
It's always on.
Last time it wasn't.
It'll pick you up.
Okay, good. You guys can hear me? Hear me? Okay. Good evening. Katie Richards, 750 Southford Road. I'm here tonight once more to remind the board of our shared concern for the safety of pedestrians for the crosswalk on Route 67 of the Larkin State Park Trail. I want to reiterate that this is not a one-person campaign, but rather a much larger group of concerned citizens that use this trail. As of this evening, there are 656 signatures on the petition to have an on-demand pedestrian light installed. Many of the horse boarders at Seville's are afraid of the dangerous crossing and choose to avoid the trail entirely. They would like to ride on the trail, but say the risk isn't worth it. In order to enjoy the Larkin Trail, we must cross here. We must cross here. According to the stats from the Naugatuck Valley Council of Governments that conducted a traffic study at the crossing in 2020, the average daily flow of traffic on the Southford Road was 10,300 vehicles. This gives you an idea of how the flow of traffic does not often break, and pedestrians rely on vehicles to stop to get across. We need something in place to get drivers' attention. Speed is another factor. According to the same study, the highest recorded speed going westbound was 105 miles per hour. Just let that sink in. I realize this might seem like small potatoes compared to the big picture projects you have in mind for this town. I would like to offer some clarity. It does not require any resources from the town or additional time from you other than an official request. Please draft and approve a letter of request so that it may be sent up to the chain of command to the DOT. It's a state road and a state park, but they need to hear from you for it to be set into motion. This is a fantastic asset to the town of Southbury, and more people will visit if it is made safer. Just like the Field of Dreams, if you build it, they will come. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Is there any other public comment?
Good evening. My name is Ed Edelson, and I reside at 609B Heritage Village. I wanted to say I support the revision in the language of the special act recommended by the Planning Commission. My question is, why was this recommendation even needed for the Board of Selectmen, or for that matter, our state legislators, to realize that this should be done? In 2012, when I, as first selectman, sent in a request for the special act upon the recommendation of the board at Pierce Hollow Village, we expected a long wait, long process. But within a few months, the legislation was approved. As the leaseholder, the work required, under my direction, the town immediately began the work required, including the environmental assessment and the historical studies. Things were moving fast. Then Pierce Hollow hit a wall when the funding criteria of the Housing Finance Authority changed to discourage senior-only housing. Prior to the 2015 election, I met with them and PHV to see if we could get some exception or a grandfather clause. To the best of my knowledge, no one from Town Hall followed up with the Housing Department to see what could be done. But meanwhile, the flexibility that changing the language in the Special Act was always another option. Over the last 8 years, I have encouraged people to thinking about doing this to no avail. Since declaring my candidacy, I have already met with my friend, the Lieutenant Governor, to inquire about making the change. She assured me that this can be easily done. Given that this session, legislative session, will end on May 8th, it is probably too late to do it this year. If I'm elected, it will be a high priority for me to get this language changed. Thank you.
Is there any other public comment?
Good evening. I'm Isabel Burke. I reside at Heritage Village. I'd like to address affordable housing. I have personally benefited from it. My father was 50 years old when he had a devastating heart attack and could no longer go to work or do any form of work for a living. Well, that left a family of 5 with 0 income. My mother got trained and went to work as a secretary. But you might imagine that's not a lot of money to pay rent and support 3 children and a household. Luckily, they had been on a list for affordable housing in New York City, and hallelujah, we got accepted. Now, affordable housing is not a voucher program. It's based on income. My mother barely made the income, but she made it. And so we were able to move into an affordable housing apartment that was clean, in a safe neighborhood, and where we had lots of people around. And I want to tell you that was probably the scariest moment of my family's life, when we had no breadwinner. So please consider affordable housing as a top project. You may not realize who needs it or who might need it in the future. Thank you so much.
Is there any other public comment?
My name is Richard Boritz. I live at 401A Heritage Village, and I too want to talk about affordable housing, and I want to expand a little bit on what my experience here has been going to my dentist. I had a conversation, he and I have different political affiliations, but we were able to have a good conversation about what the governor was doing in the state and some of the things we liked, and we shared those with each other. And we had this conversation, and it turned to affordable housing, where I said, I think the governor is pressing that as an issue, and I wish the town would do that as well and support that and make that happen. And he had to leave the room, but the dental hygienist, who had been quiet the entire time, then spoke up to me. She talked to me. She said, you know, I really like what the governor's doing, what you're saying to the dentist here, because I'm divorced, mother of two. I've been working here for a few years, and it took me 2 years of living with my parents in town to find a place that I could afford on the salary that I make as a hygienist. So, you know, we're talking about people who are here. We're talking about those people who serve us in many capacities, and one of them just happened to hear a conversation I had with the dentist, and I think it's important that we support these people so they could stay here. Thank you.
Thank you. Is there any other public comment?
Good evening. I am Yarel Marshall. I live at 205 Luther Drive. My family and I have been here for 16 years, and I'm also here for affordable housing. Reason being is all 3 children graduated from Region 15 and cannot afford to live here on their own. We don't have the opportunities that many do in terms of legacy or passing on. My husband was in the military for 10 years prior to us arriving here, and so it was a startup for us. Heaven forbid anything were to happen to my husband, and I would not be able to afford to live here as a teacher. And as grateful as I am to the education that my children received, it's pretty sad that the percentage of educators don't live here. So they don't have that same relationship that they probably could if they were able to afford to live also in town. And it's interesting that the gentleman before me had mentioned about these conversations, because I also had a conversation at the nail salon, Watercolor Nail and Spa, and they overheard me speaking about affordable housing, and the owner said, please speak on our behalf. They have been here for several years, have done amazing work. Many people attend, but yet they still travel from New York to come and have this business and provide this type of service. There are way too many people that are in this town that contribute in some shape or form, but unfortunately cannot afford it. I also come from a family in Massachusetts, I was born and raised in Massachusetts, that have quite a number of homes, buildings, as well as apartments. Affordable housing has always been feasible, and there have been no issues at all. Thank you for your time.
Thank you. Is there anybody else that would like to make public comment?
My name's Catherine Gall. I live at 765B Heritage Village. I just wanted to say I support the development of affordable housing for people of all ages at the Southbury Training School location, which was originally proposed for affordable senior housing. There's a few statements I'm going to quote from the town website. Access to affordable housing is a need in every Connecticut town. A goal of state law is for 10% of housing units in every town to be affordable. Under the state definition, as of 2020, only 1.48% of Southbury's total housing units were deemed affordable. Thank you.
Is there any other public comment?
Good evening. Angie Tennyson. I live at 466 South Flood Hill Road, which happens to be off River Road. Now, our road is a cul-de-sac, and I'd like to voice my concern about the closure of River Road at the one end that's been going on since October of 2023. Every trip you make into town is an additional 2 miles each way, and that's not so bad. But if we go westbound on 84, it's an additional 6 to 7 miles. And in addition, we have to deal with the one-lane bridge on Purchase Brook Road, which is going to be under construction soon. And in January, actually, the police came to our house during one of those heavy rainstorms and advised us that the other end of River Road, which was the only way for us to get out, might be under water soon. So that would have left us and our neighbors completely stranded. And one of the major concerns is that our family, and there are other families on South Flood Hill Road and in the neighborhood that use Danbury Hospital for their medical care. And God forbid, if any of us needed an ambulance, the additional 6 to 7 miles into Danbury could be a matter of life and death. So in closing, I'd like to request that maybe we could find out more about the engineering study and see if there can be a resolution about the close end of River Road. Thank you for your time.
Thank you. Is there any other public comment?
Christine Flint, 262B Heritage Village. I'm here to support affordable housing, and for all the reasons that are given previously, I agree with. But I'd also like to remind you that there are many communities in Connecticut and nearby who have built affordable housing with positive results. Some of them are Brookfield, New Milford, Middlebury, Newtown, Washington, Roxbury, Kent. And as a matter of fact, the percentages of affordable housing to the individual populations of these towns are greater than in Southbury. Also, President Biden has called for an increase in affordable housing countrywide. There may be incentives attached to this, I don't know. But there's a possibility of mandates down the road also. Lastly, being a heritage villager myself, I can tell you that there is a good possibility there are village residents who will be priced out of the village by the rising cost of our monthly maintenance. So these folks will be looking for affordable housing nearby. Why not Southbury? Thank you.
Thank you. Is there any other public comment? Is there, yes, ma'am.
My name is Susan Nardella. I live at 390 Roxbury Road, which is affordable housing. Just wanted to share my story. I think there's differing definitions of affordable housing. I think it's a confusing term in my mind. I'm trying to understand it a little bit more. But my situation is I lived in Middlebury, I grew up in Middlebury. I've lived in Southbury for 20 plus years. I've raised both my children through the Southbury school system. I paid thousands upon thousands of dollars in taxes to live in this town. I love this town, it's my home. Circumstances arise in people's lives, and my life changed pretty dramatically at one point. I lost my job, which was, making over 6 figures and living in a 4,000 square foot house, and my life changed that day. I was forced to sell my house and change my lifestyle as a single mom, how to support my children, and find a place to live. I had sold my house in 2018. So it's a very different market than it is today. It sat on the market for a year, and I sold it for half of what I built it for in 2006. So that was my retirement. It was, my whole life changed, and anxiety about where I was going to go ensued. I was fortunate enough at the time to be able to stay in town because of affordable housing that's available. Now, having said that, I promote affordable housing if it's being done for the right reasons. I have lived in this particular place it will be 4 years, and I was hugely grateful because my rent it allowed me to stay, get a new job, kind of start my life over. However, the rent has been increasing, and what was affordable housing is now turning into non-affordable housing, okay? So there remains a need to help people stay in this town who have contributed, and I promote it if it's being done for the right reasons.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Is there any other public comment?
I'm Harvey Pesson, 619B Cedar Circle. And I have a personal vested interest in affordable housing. Originally, I came from Ridgefield. My wife grew up in Ridgefield. We spent a long time in Ridgefield, and particularly after the World Trade Towers fell, we had an influx of people. And they were all relatively rich and relatively special, and the character of the town changed. All of a sudden, a lot of very wealthy people were moving in, buying big houses, and the character of the town became such that we didn't want to live there. We didn't want to raise our children in a one-sided town, and ultimately we left. I would not like to see that happen to Southbury. I think the operative word would be the town should be diverse. There should be a little of every type of income, every type of family. Without affordable housing, we're just going to go the same route that Ridgefield did. So I live in the village, and I'm relatively comfortable. But everybody I know, like me, and the people I know outside of the village buying houses are able to afford those houses because they've had other houses before. So in my lifetime, I've had 4 houses, and I gained a little equity in each house. So finally, I can comfortably live in Heritage Village, but the people who don't have 4 houses behind them, don't have that basic equity, what can they do? They can't even jump on the merry-go-round. If you're not on the merry-go-round at all and you're not building equity, I don't have a good solution for them.
Thank you. Are there any other public comment?
I'm going to split this because mine is too long. Is that okay?
You can go ahead.
Okay. Hi, Barbie Granton, 308 North Georges Road, Southbury. So let me start in the beginning. I'm a 13-year resident of Southbury. I came this evening to speak in favor of creating more affordable housing options in Southbury. I cannot possibly, in under 2 minutes, share all of my personal experiences as a sole parent raising a child here, but it's been a rough road. I have had 5 different rentals in 13 years. 3 times the house was sold out from under me because I could not afford to buy. I had 30 days to vacate and had to come up with first, last, and security for a new home. Every time I moved, the rent was an increase. I'm at the point now where I work 2 jobs. My part-time job as an overnight caregiver means I'm not even in my own home many nights of the month, but I do what I have to do because I want my daughter to graduate from Pomperaug High School. And let me speak about her for a moment. From kindergarten through junior year, she has won so many awards, academic, art, theater, music. Her test scores are off the charts and is
It is exemplary students like her that are a big part of the reason Region 15 schools rate so highly. But to accomplish this, I have driven cars without insurance so that I could buy groceries. I have juggled shut-off notice for electric and phone. I worry constantly about running out of oil for hot showers and heat. I've seriously neglected my 20-year-old car that needs repairs, as well as my own health, to avoid co-pays, and all of this stress has surely affected my mental and physical well-being. But I always pay my rent, because my biggest fear is that I'm one catastrophe away from being homeless. I live paycheck to paycheck, and if I need a new engine or transmission or had an injury or illness, even for a short period of time, my daughter and I would be displaced. These are scary scenarios that keep me awake at night. I'm 59 years old. I am not a minimum wage employee. I've worked in high-tech fields for 40 years. I make a decent hourly rate. I work overtime, and I have a side gig, yet I spend 50% of my income for the roof over our heads. I have no cushion, no emergency funds, no fancy hairstylist. I shop at Goodwill. What vacations we've had is camping or squeezing 6 people into a hotel room. But I do love it here, and my daughter is thriving, so I suck it up for now, and I don't want to see others have to struggle as I have, because it's no way to live.
Thank you.
Am I close?
Yeah. Is there any other public comment?
Forgive me if I speak super fast. I have to finish quite a bit of this. Okay, Stevie Bennett, also 308 North Georges. Finishing it for her. I am also here to advocate because I know there's a huge stigma attached to the term affordable housing, like it'll be welfare mothers or lazy drug addicts that'll increase the crime rate, and that is so far from the truth. As statistics show, as mentioned before, in neighboring towns such as Kent and Washington that are just beautiful towns, that is simply not true. I personally have given back to the community as a Girl Scout leader in the school system and on the Inland Wetland Commission for over 2 years, and in youth sports as coach and president of the Pompard Youth Softball League, all of which was volunteer time. I certainly do not have a criminal record nor engage in any illegal activity, which are common themes I hear on social media when we even mention the fact that people need affordable places to live. I get zero government assistance and can honestly say that I work harder than most. I also know many parents, seniors, and young people that would benefit from affordable housing who also give back to the community that they love. For example, I have a friend whose children attended Region 15 schools for most of their lives, but she's going through a divorce and can't afford the mortgage, meaning she is scrambling to find affordable housing, which in our town is slim to none. She quite possibly will have to move her kids to another town and school system, which is heartbreaking for a parent. My sister is a senior, 77 years old, who is very active and still works 30 hours a week. She actually went to high school right up the street at what is now RMS, but on a fixed income, even with a job, she can't afford to live in the area that she loves and grew up in. I have another friend, 45 years old, who now lives with his mother because after a divorce, he could not afford to support his 2 children and pay a rent or mortgage in this town. Another single mom's friend's house was foreclosed on, and she took the only apartment she could afford, which was full of mold, which then caused respiratory problems for her and her children. On the positive side, I do know someone who got into the affordable housing on Old Waterbury Road, who went back to school to advance her career and got a better job in the area. Her rent is based on her annual income, yet most of the apartments in the town, or most of the apartments are not affordable housing units, and those tenants pay twice of what she pays. Please put aside any preconceived notions and educate yourselves to the South Bay Affordable Housing Alliance's missions with open minds. To conclude, I and many others feel strongly that Southbury as a whole would benefit greatly from making more affordable housing available so that middle-income people, young and old, as well as families, can afford to live and work here, shop here, and contribute in many ways to the community. Thank you for your time.
Thank you. Are there any other public comment?
Thank you for the opportunity to comment on the crucial issue of affordable housing in Southbury. As a community, we must address the pressing need for accessible housing options, especially for our seniors and entry-level working families who face numerous challenges in maintaining their quality of life. The prospect of affordable housing at Southbury Training School presents a promising opportunity, particularly for the seniors and entry-level working families specifically, but with many seniors vying for these units, the likelihood of success increases, offering hope to those in need of stable housing. It is essential to recognize, although there will be 2- and 3-bedroom homes in this space, most of the units will be 1-bedroom, aligning with the needs of many seniors in our community. Our seniors have endured substantial financial burdens from rising property taxes to exorbitant energy costs and inflation in essential goods like groceries. These challenges underscore the urgent need for affordable housing solutions that alleviate the financial strain and provide security to our aging population. I urge full support of the Southbury Affordable Housing Alliance as they endeavor to make the meaningful progress in addressing these pressing issues. Their efforts laid a foundation for positive change and a more inclusive community where everyone has access to safe and affordable housing. Furthermore, I request acknowledgement and action on the proposed amendment to the Special Act Number 1323, Section B, 5B3, changing senior housing to multi-generational housing. This modification reflects the evolving needs of the community and ensures that our housing initiatives are inclusive and responsive to the diverse demographics we serve. In conclusion, I implore that the Southbury Board of Selectmen to prioritize affordable housing initiatives, working collaboratively with the town council and the state representatives to enact meaningful change.
Thank you.
Together, we can
2 minutes.
more
Thank you.
equitable and future for all.
Is there any other public comment?
I'm sorry, I didn't get a name or address on that. I apologize, I'm remote, so I can't see.
That was John Deal.
Oh, thank you.
Is there any other public comment? Is there any other public comment? We have one more of those to call. I'll be patient. Is there any other public comment? Hearing none, we'll move on with the rest of our agenda. In front of you, you have announcements and correspondence. You also have your reports in front of you. Move on to the consent agenda. Do I have a motion to approve?
So moved.
Made and seconded. Any discussion on the consent agenda? Hearing none, all in favor of the consent agenda, please signify by saying aye. Aye.
Aye.
Anyone opposed? And it carries. Minutes, March 7th, 2024. Do I have a motion to approve?
I make a motion to approve.
Thank you, Tim. Do I have a second?
Second.
Ollie seconded it. Any discussion on the minutes? Hearing none, all in favor of approving the minutes signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Aye. Opposed? And it carries. We are under unfinished business. First up is charter revision. We are up for the charter revision. You have some suggestions in front of you. There's some we had to work from the backwards, I guess you call it, backwards, from the date of when it's going to go to referendum. So we are going to look into staffing or getting people on. I think that what we should do is go out to the public to ask if there are people who are interested in the Charter Revision Committee and put that committee together with the appropriate number of people. Is there any discussion on this?
Just a couple of things. One, on the timeline that was provided, I just want to note the date on there, the August 2025, that's sort of the back-end date. That's the last possible date to get on the November 2025 ballot that the Board of Selectmen would have to vote to approve a final report of the Charter Revision Commission. So I think for our next meeting, what we need to do is identify when we want the first draft report from the commission, because when we appoint the commission, we have to give them a time period, and we have to tell them when we want the draft report by. And I would recommend, based on my experience, well, it's going to be in the May timeframe, but I'd build in a couple weeks before whatever that end date is, because it gets tight. Justin will recall, and Jeff will recall 5 years ago, we were here on the night that the questions had to get to the town clerk the next morning, and we were here like past 11 o'clock going through questions, trying to make sure it got done by the next day. Like, there's no reason, that's just, dealing with it on the front end eliminates that and builds a couple more weeks into the process. So I would take that 8/20/25 date, move it up a little, and move the May date into like the beginning of May. So I just asked like the town clerk or your office or whatnot to look at the calendar and propose some dates for the next meeting as to when we would want all this to happen and how much time we want to give the Charter Vision Commission. My only other comment, I'm not sure if you're looking for action tonight, other than that you're going to go out and start soliciting folks, but once we take a vote to actually start this process, we then have a firm 30-day deadline to populate the commission. So I wouldn't necessarily take that vote tonight because I don't know how many applications we're going to get. And again, we don't want to be in a crunch. We want to, make sure we have time to review everything and meet those time periods. So those are my sort of comments on the timeline, not knowing exactly what action you're looking for tonight.
I agree. It's just, there's been questions asked, and we've been pretty busy with police and pools and a number of other things, and the question's been raised and raised to when. I think what I'm probably looking for here is direction from the board that we'll go out looking for people to be on their charter revision and start getting applications in, advertise it to the public, and before we pull the trigger, so to speak, or light the fuse to when we have to go, and then line it up so that, like I said, in 30 days, you'll have to populate it and get it started. So is that, I don't know if we need a formal vote, but we can go out next week.
I think you can start soliciting people saying that Board of Selectmen is about to, start this process and anyone interested. And then in our next meetings, we can take a vote to start the process. And then a couple meetings after that, populate the commission and tell them what they need to do. And our board can also make recommendations to the commission as to what we want them to look at. Once we start a charter commission, they can look at anything they want, and they don't have to accept anything we tell them to look at, but they do have to look at things if we ask them to look at them. So that's something our body should think about as well.
Okay? We good with that? Okay. Next up, the hiring of the police chief hiring process. There's a few things we want to get approved if we can. Let's start with the position, the position description, full-time exempt of the police, the chief of police. This has been written up, it's been vetted. Does anybody have any comments on the job description or any concerns?
I'll make a motion that we approve the proposed police chief job description.
Can I have a second?
I'll second it.
Thank you, Tim. I'll open it up for any more discussion on the job description of the police chief.
I'll just say I believe our Labor Council provided a number of draft descriptions and HR worked on putting together a draft. I was asked for some feedback, which I provided throughout that process. And I believe Labor Council then reviewed it again, the final draft. But I'm not certain of that. It's very similar to a lot of the other towns that we looked at. I think it's a good description.
Okay. I'll call vote on the position. All in favor signify by saying aye.
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 Anybody opposed? And it carries. Next up, we have, I guess we could take the, let's start with the memo of understanding between the parties. And this is a technicality that has to be approved. And once approved, it will, it kind of sets how we're going to transition. A lot of this is about the records and the record keeping and when it starts and when it stops. So I think I would entertain a motion to approve the memorandum of understanding by and between the Connecticut Department of Emergency Services and Public Protection and the Southbury Police Department. It will be dated when that is executed. Do I have a motion?
Yep, so moved.
Thank you, Greg. Do I have a second?
I'll second it. I also have a question. You know, what I've heard is that we're trying to bring the new guy on as of July 1. This contract with the state expires the day before. Throughout our process, and if I've missed it in here, please let me know, but throughout our process on the police commission that reviewed all this, Jason and I were on, we talked about having overlap between the resident trooper and the new chief of at least 30 days, if not 60 or 90, but I don't see any mention of that in here.
I think we're looking for, we knew we'd probably have a 30-day overlap, which we would be paying both salaries, because really, number one, we need to give 30 days. Number two, they need to be in there to transition any information over to the chief at that time. I think this clarifies the more, if you look at the bottom, is the records, when the records are transitioned. And this is under the assumption that we're going to make the July 1st. If we're going to make the July 1st, we may be June 1st of this year. If we do hire, then you would have the 30 days to July 1st. I just want to say that we've always said along the way, hopefully this goes smoothly, hopefully it gets done in the timeline we want to. But the difference between pushing for July 1st because it's a date we said versus, let's just say, August 1st, I'd rather give the time, if it needs to go out to August 1st, the flexibility of doing it right the first time rather than push the date. And so many times if I found that if you push the date, something will go wrong and then you're misstepping. But this puts into motion just an approval of the memorandum of understanding with the state.
So to that, to the last point you just made that sort of leads to my question. One of my concerns with this as drafted is it seems to be firming up that July 1 date, which I think we all want. I think we'd all like to see this transition on July 1. But the contract says it will transition on July 1. So one of my questions was, it's March. We just approved the job description. We're going to go out, post that, get names back. Once we get those applications back, I think we'll probably have a better sense of what the rest of the timeline looks like. Because right now, I don't think we can guess how many applications we're going to get, but I don't think we know. So one of my questions was whether this MOU needs to be approved tonight, because if we end up in a situation where we think it's going to be August 1, then this contract would look different.
I don't think we have to vote on it. We don't have to do this tonight. And I think the only thing that will change is everything else is in here. It's just the dates when we decide that we know where we are. Is that all right?
Right. Yeah. So I would approve it when we're closer to knowing those dates, assuming talking to the state that my understanding under the state contract is, at least the old one, is you had a 60-day out, or maybe it was 30 days.
30 days.
30 days.
30 days.
This seems to say that contract expires at the end of June, so I guess we're in a position now where if it wasn't July 1, we'd need like a 30-day extension of that, which I can't imagine being an issue with the state. But I think we have to have those sorts of discussions and understand those dates before we firm them up in this agreement.
The other thing is if we have to sign the full contract, you still have 30 days you can get out of the contract. I think the state will understand that. So we can table that.
I would move to postpone this MOU to a subsequent meeting.
But at least you've been able to see it.
Yeah.
Procedurally, we have a motion.
Second.
Seconded on the postponement. Any further discussion? All in favor signify by saying aye. Aye.
Aye.
Aye.
Opposed?
Aye.
Okay, so it carries. Next up, let's talk a little bit about, before we get to the chief hiring process. You see the agreement that was sent out, which is the agreement that the chiefs of police would ask us to sign in order to use their services. I looked at this, and this, I am told, came about because they had offered their services to some municipality, and when they recommended the group that they put forward, so to speak, they picked someone else. So that evidently, now the chiefs of police want a signature or a contract. Now, I don't know if that means they could sue us for thousands of dollars or not. I think, but it means that it would be under their recommendation to the board of people to be considered for the board. And I'm not sure I'm comfortable with that. So I would open that up for discussion on that contract. Part of the reason we kind of wanted the state to stay out of our business, so to speak.
And to me, it's, I mean, correct me if I'm wrong, you know, I felt like the way that we'd been talking about it and been characterized is we were hoping for more of a partnership there rather than, you know, an independent advisement, you know, that.
I think we're the first town that has come up for this since they did this, to be honest with you. So that's what I think happened. So that's, yes, I agree, that's what I thought. But this is a contract, and it would be their vetting to put forward. Anybody else?
Is there a cost?
No.
So the obligation would be to agree to use their service. They, in the end, would provide X number of candidates to us to consider, and we would or would not be obliged to consider all of those.
We would be obliged to consider only them.
Only them, got it.
That's my
the
understanding of
caveat.
this and how this is written. We would be obliged to only consider them.
Okay.
Tim?
I don't really have anything. I mean, I would definitely like someone like that to recommend people, because I really have no idea on any type of hiring like that. So I think that it would be good to have a contract with someone like this. That's just my opinion.
Jason, I know you.
So the language I had a concern with in the contract, and I don't know if there's any hybrids with these folks, that they can provide some services, not others, or assist in preparing questions and screening, but not doing other, like, I don't know what the magnitude of services, the menu that is available. But the language that I had a concern with is in paragraph 4D, which says the municipality agrees that it will not hire a candidate who has not been interviewed and who has not been affirmatively recommended by the CPCA conducted oral board. And so essentially, as I read it, and again, we could talk to them further and understand more, if they give you a handful of people that they've recommended and you don't like any of them, you sort of have a contractual agreement that you can't hire someone who wasn't recommended by them. And one of the things that I think is going to be very important in our chief hiring process, whatever hiring process we ultimately agree to at the end of the day, is that we have some local input in that process. Every community is different. Every police department's different. Justin knows from being on the committee, like, it's all apples and oranges. Like, there's no real straight line comparisons between how all these things are run. There's some general, stuff. And I think that sort of understanding your community and local control and local input is going to be important. Whether an outside group can come in and guide that, that's how I always envisioned it. What concerns me is the language in the contract. I always saw these folks as, they'd come in and sort of provide some overall input and help and advice and consult, which is a little bit different than what that says. So that's that's a bit of the rub for me. So if there's some hybrid where they could be involved, but not to that extent, that's great. But I don't think we should eliminate the local ability to make the choice that we think is best for our community.
So that leads into, go ahead, Holly, you have something?
Yeah, I mean, as an HR professional that has hired hundreds of people over the last 20 plus years, I'm incredibly uncomfortable with that. There's no guarantee that what we feel is best for our town is necessarily the folks that they put forward, and I'm sure they're very good at what they do. But to Jason's point, we know our community better than anybody else. And I think that while we greatly value their input to really restrict us so that we could only consider the folks that they recommend, I just don't know that does our community justice. I have to completely agree that I'm very uncomfortable with that. And I'd like to see that language change.
Thank you. I also just, it's funny for me to say this, but I guess I got to say it. For the past 9 years, I've hired probably, you say 75, 80% of the police officers that we have today. I don't know if anybody truly understands, I don't know if anybody from the outside coming in would understand our policing and the type of police we're looking to hire. I'll remind the board that when I first came, there was a hire about to happen and I stopped it. And politically, that was not easy because we were down a lot of officers. So I've structured this, and if you look at our police department, and you'll see another candidate coming at the next board meeting, we've been able to attract, and our community has been very happy with the police officers that we've been bringing in. To that, is what you're saying is, who understands the community more than those of us who have been involved in that police department and have basically created what it is today. A lot of times people convert from resident trooper to an organized because it's a mess. We don't have a mess, and we have great police officers. I'm uncomfortable with the contract, so I have proposed what you have in front of you. Hiring process for the police chief, 1, the contract, or 2, an internal hiring practice. HR does the initial screening of the application, narrows down to 10 applicants. That would be the finance director, finance and HR human resource administrator, and our Southbury human resource attorney. From there, form an internal selection committee to narrow it down to 5. That internal selection committee would be myself as the first selectman, a Democratic selectman. Frankly, I would prefer to have Justin, you know the town, you've been around. Finance director, finance and human resource administrator, members of the police service study group committee, possibly ask John Norris, because John was on the committee and contributed a lot about what we would be looking about organizing. Get some current police chiefs. We've already spoken with Reading Police Chief agreeing to be on the interview committee. Chief O'Donnell is another chief interviewed, provide information to the police services study committee for the independent police department. And another current police chief, possible to ask Naugatuck Chief of Police, Chief McAllister. I'll remind the board that he did start here in Southbury as an officer. As an advisor, non-voting member of the Police Service Study Committee. I would also ask that we could have representative from Heritage Village, possibly ask for the former Police Chief Bill McKenna, which would give us the input from a large portion of our community over there, and he would like I said, he was a chief in Middletown, and his input. Once they give come forward with 5 finalists, then it would be up to the Board of, I would suggest the Board of Selectmen interview, just the Board of Selectmen interview those 5 finalists to hire the chief. I'll open that up for discussion. Nothing says we have to make a decision tonight, gentlemen. Ladies, I will say this. This is an important step in Southbury's process. There's nothing says we have to do everything the next day. It's an important process. We want to get it done. But if anybody's uncomfortable or there's something you're questioning, certainly think about it. We can table it till the next meeting. I'm not suggesting we do that. But if there's, I want to be sure that if anybody's uncomfortable with that process or thinks something different may want to be done, I would suggest that we make that, we don't just run through this. Justin?
The only thing I might, well, the only thing I would suggest that we consider is that the group that's being put together, the internal selection committee, I wonder if they shouldn't see all the applications.
Who's they?
That select committee.
I would go, are you talking about step A or step B?
Step B.
Step B.
I see, so you're saying have the committee look at everything that comes in.
There are members of that committee will have a lot more experience than, no offense to our HR people, they're wonderful, but they have a lot more experience in policing than those folks do.
I think the first one is the initial, I think that is, well, I think the idea there was mostly, there's going to be people who are not qualified. But if you're, I mean, having our attorney also look at that, I think that's just down to 10 to make sure there's 10 qualified people, not, I don't know if you get, you know, if you're going to, we've talked about this, the trouble with getting, if, let's say we get 50 applications, you're going to ask this list of people to do 50 applications. That's pretty, that's a lot of time for a lot of people that.
It would be, but is that even possible? I mean, are there 50 retired chiefs in the state?
Yeah, that gets to one of my comments. I think a lot of the next steps of this are going to be dictated by how many applications we get. Because if we get 50, 100 applications, we need a screening process. And we need to go through various levels because you're not going to put 10 people in a room to go through, 50 applications. If we get 5, I think we're talking about a very different process. And I think that's sort of, that's where the process changes. And I think as we sit here today, we don't know that.
You can change the number on the 10. I think if you get 5 in, this A is, okay, we have 5.
To me, let's play with that number, right? If we get 5, we don't need 3 separate groups to whittle down 5 people.
But if we get 50.
True, too. Right, so I'll just say my piece on this. I struggle with the idea. I love the logic of whittling it down and let's imagine there's 100 applicants and we have these 3 separate groups and it whittles down. That makes sense to me. I don't know. For the record, it's just on my mind. It does bother me a little bit that the first selectman, another selectman, and everybody under the sun is going to get to whittle down this list except Jason, Greg, Holly, and Tim. And so I'm just going to say I've always had an issue with that. I understand the process.
So you want to put the whole entire Board of Selectmen on B?
I'm not saying that I want to do anything. I'm saying
that's what you're saying.
I'm just sharing a thought to consider. I don't know. Like we're saying,
I mean,
something that's been whittling around in my head, and I'm not sure how to feel about it, is what I'm saying. Something for
because
us
then
to
you're
just
looking at a
consider.
board of.
It becomes a lot of cooks in the kitchen.
That, in my experience, it becomes very difficult to get anything done when you put more than.
I know.
I'm even 8 is.
I think that, in my mind, I think if we get a lot of applicants, which I think we will, this is Everybody knows that this department's going independent. This is an opportunity for someone to come in, build a department, first-time police chief, I think we're gonna get a lot of applicants. So we need to be thinking about, what are we gonna do if we get all the applicants that we think we're gonna get? But if only 10 resumes show up at town hall, then I think the discussion's different as to how we proceed. Because if it's only 10, then I think this is shifting to something that looks a little different, that probably doesn't need a three-prong approach. Maybe that first committee, the first three folks can take out the clear, like, totally inexperienced, like, not, but
And
not
you will
making-
get that.
Right, and then maybe it's the Board of Selectmen's the hiring committee, and we're bringing in the police chief and fiscal director and whatever into that process, and, because you only have 5 people, right? Like, if you only have 5 that we're talking about, then it really is dictated by how many you get. I personally think we're gonna get a ton, and we're gonna need this sort of approach. And I think we need to start thinking about what the approach is gonna look like if we get a lot, so we're prepared. And if it is 50 applicants, then I think it makes sense to have an initial committee to sort of whittle it down. To Justin's point, maybe it's a hybrid. Maybe that initial sends the recommendations to the internal screening, but also sends the other batch, hey, here's the resumes we rejected. You can gloss through it, here's your recommendations.
I think, remember, the board individually could ask to see it.
Yeah.
You can take that time to do that. Nobody's going to say, no, you can't look at those other ones.
And then after that process is really when our body could really start saying, well, we want you to bring it down to 5 or whatnot, because I don't think that's a question we can answer on the front end, like how many people are going to be in each category, because we don't know how many qualified resumes we have. For tonight, what I think is really important, because I think this thing needs to get rolling, and I'm sure there's other things that need to be done as part of the transition as well. We've approved the job description. There's a job posting. I think those need to get out. Like, how much time are we looking at for those to come back? Have we thought about that, or?
I don't know how, I mean, how long are you going to leave the post, do you want to leave the posting open?
That's an HR, but like that, I mean, that's, I think, outside of our, how that is normally done. But I think that'll provide some clarity on the next steps, and then I think we should start honing in on these next steps. As to the committee, in the meantime, there's a lot on here I like, but it says, we might ask this one, we might ask that one. I think, by our next meeting, if we can start asking these folks, reach out to Chief McAllister and see if he has time. He was very helpful on the Police Services Study Committee. Reach out to Mr. Norris, reach out to these people that are listed here, and see if this is even something that they have time to do, because otherwise we got to start coming up with other names. But I do think this is the right sort of way to go if we have tons of applications, and we don't know that as we sit here today. And then to be clear for everyone who's listening, because I think we've been talking about the preliminary steps, at the end of the day, those final candidates, whoever they are, and however number of them our board decides it will be, 5, 3, or 6, or whatever that number is, will be fully interviewed by every member of the Board of Selectmen as a group, and will be hired by the board. So,
Yeah,
that's my thoughts.
the others, the chiefs, have kind of indicated they would help. And the good thing is I think they're a good pick for what our town and what we're looking for. I have not reached out to John Norris, but I think the fact that he sat on the police service committee and he gave a lot of good input as a citizen, would be his input as a citizen, on the interviews and questions he may have. What I'm hearing is I don't hear anybody advocating for the police contract with the chiefs of police. I think.
What I will advocate for, if not the police contract, is regardless of what form this takes, that we have law enforcement professionals involved in the process. So this committee, this internal selection committee is currently proposed, has that. It has three, 2 current and 1 former law enforcement professional acting as police chief. I think that's important too, like people that really know the role. And if for some reason we end up modifying this, we only get 5 applicants, and we say, oh, the board's just going to do all of them, then I would say we bring those chiefs into our board meeting. Like I think we want that input of professionals on the ground to assist in evaluating candidates.
The only other thing I thought was really to your point is, unless we're not sure that the police chief's organization doesn't offer an à la carte version of their services, you know what I mean?
No.
They don't? Okay, then that's that. Thanks.
Here's the contract.
Right, it is what it is. This is what we offer.
I understand. And they're not saying, they're not saying you're crazy if you don't use us. They're just saying, this is an option, happy to help, but we do a contract, and these are the stipulations. So, on here we have, and with this number of people and trying to get this number of applicants in, there's going to be times when someone is going to have another, they're going to have to be someplace. The chief may have, can't make a meeting, or one of us can't make a meeting. I mean, we have to understand that. That's why I think you want the number, which is okay, because, and if there's particular things, selectmen, if you were to say, Greg, if you say, something I'm concerned with is this, Jeff, this may be something that I would say, okay, what's one of our questions that I'll try to get input on what it is. Okay. It's not like you're not, you can't ask questions of, but going in, certainly, if Justin was to be, it's between the two of you to be there, Tim was concerned with something particular, you would express that, and then that way, your questions, and that way, because when you get to the C, those are questions you're going to ask, and we want to make sure that that's a question that when you ask it, one of the candidates is going to give an answer that you approve of. So, does that make sense? So I don't want to think, even though this big one doesn't include the whole board, to open it up to 4 more board members that's 12 people, and we know how difficult it can be getting that number together. And I don't expect there's going to be things that are going to happen that are going to be difficult for people to be there. So, I guess now I'm at a point where we know we don't, what I'm hearing is we don't want the contract. We're not so cool about the contract. That's okay. Secondly, we're okay with, depending on the number of applications, if there's 11 or 12, obviously 11 or 12 are going to go forward because that's all you have. But if we have to make a number to push forward, if it hits B, if out of those 10, we don't like any of them, I find it hard to believe that out of the 10 that come out of the first clearance, if you will, I doubt that you're going to have people that you're not going to like in that 10 number. I mean, we know pretty much what the board is looking for. I think we know what we're looking for. I think it's pretty much, are they qualified or are they not qualified? But again, the board can also, we're not going to say no to looking at the applications. It's just, you got to screen them, and there's going to be a lot of them.
So to get the job posted, is there any other action required by our body other than approving the job description?
I think we can move forward with the job posting.
Do you have to approve the job posting?
We did approve, yeah.
We approved the
Approve the job description.
the posting itself? We could, I mean, we don't need to, that was fully they were like ready with that posting, that's the posting that, so I would make a motion to approve the job posting.
Second.
Motion is to approve the job posting, made and seconded. Any further discussion? Signify by saying, if all in favor, signify by saying aye.
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 Any opposed? And it carries, so the job posting will go out.
I had a question about number 3 on the needed, it talks about testing, and I know that, for the minimum job qualifications is they need to be certified in various areas or whatnot. Is there additional testing that's required? Or was this if we did the contract with CPCA, or the?
The two different ones are different routes you could take. There's two different companies. One is with the CPCA, the chief of police. And the other one is South Central testing that was recommended by Reading Police Chief O'Donnell.
And this is testing that applicants would go through
For the application, correct?
like at what point?
For the application, they have to do testing.
Okay, so before they could even submit, they need to have pass some test or have some score?
I don't think it's prior to the putting in an application. I think it's after, it's during the selection process or after the person's selected. They must be tested.
I see. So it's okay,
It's later in the stage.
got it, okay.
Not prior to the application.
That makes sense, okay.
Before the hiring.
Got it. So,
Is that something, hang on, that's confusing to me. So we're going to go through this process. Let's imagine that we whittle down to 5 applicants, and we say, we really like Bob Smith, and then after we say, well, I think maybe Bob Smith's our guy, then Bob Smith has to go to South Central testing and pass some sort of test before we, I just didn't understand that. Maybe we need to clarify?
could get some clarity on that.
That's good, yeah.
Get clarity on that for the next meeting. Thank you. But, so it seems like for tonight, we've taken whatever action we need to take to get this posted and start receiving applications. My personal thought would be, between now and the next meeting, that we reach out to all these folks that are being considered for this internal selection committee and see if they're able and willing to participate. And if not, that we start thinking of other folks for that process. And then, as I said, I think the process gets dictated by the number of applicants. If it's a lot, I think this makes a lot of sense. If it's 10, I think we regroup and have another discussion.
Yeah, I'm pretty sure we're not gonna have 10. I've had at least 50 people asking or talking or, oh, by the way. All of a sudden I have 50 new friends. All right, and we'll get the testing straightened out. So I think we're good with the job posting, job description, job posting, and we'll reach out to these to make sure, get a commitment from them, and nail down that testing, all right? Okay. I think we're up to the next thing, new business.
Could I ask, please, I'm sorry to add, if I could please make a motion to add to new business, a discussion on the topic of the Larkin Trail pedestrian road crossing at State Route 67 and 188. Don't need more than a 5-minute discussion, please.
I'll second that.
Thank you.
Made and second, any discussion on the motion to add to the agenda discussion of the,
Discussion of the Larkin Trail pedestrian road crossings at State Route 67 and 188.
any further discussion? All in favor, signify by saying aye.
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 Opposed? It carries.
Thank you.
Next up is the Hutter property. We have a resolution. We've been requested, basically, the land trust would like to get this property. It's in arrears on taxes. We would take it in lieu of the taxes and then turn it over to the land trust. This abuts their property. Gives access. Maybe we want Joe to speak on this, or do we? Joe, would you like to speak on this? Come on up, Joe. It's good to see you.
I'm Joe Ruggiero, tonight anyway, we're representing the land trust. So I can give you a brief history of this. This piece of property is in arrears, has been for a while. We purchased some property just to the south of it, 31 acres, back in November of 2021. And it's in the Reservoir Road area, if you're familiar with it. And so we acquired the 31 acres, prevented it from being developed. It's very close to another property in Woodbury called the Trolley Bed property, if anybody's familiar with that. It's like 200-something acres, just north of it. So what this would do is allow us to have a parking area that is, it's like a buildable lot, but it's not a buildable lot. It's very wet, and this particular property is not very useful, and that no house was ever built on it, and that's part of why it went into arrears. Anyway, what we'd like to do is, the Hutters have agreed to give it to the town because they have all this back taxes on it, and they're not using it, and they can't do anything with it. It's not worth that much, but it's really valuable to us. So it's already got a gravel area that's in the one little area where it isn't wet, and that would provide access to the 31 acres. We're planning to put in a trail system in there. There's a pond in the 31 acres. So this is a new preserve called the Spring Hill Preserve. That's our name for it, on the east side of town. And we don't have a lot on the east side of town, so this is going to be another nice feature. You know, you're familiar with many of our preserves already, and this is a new one that we're going to develop. And we also plan to try to make it handicapped accessible, at least to some extent, around the pond, which is a trick, so we'll do that. Anyway, if there's any other questions, please let me know.
Joe, I think we're going to need to amend this to say 453 Old Woodbury Road, because
Oh, is that-
that's where the property
Yeah, it shouldn't be
actually
Old
is.
Woodbury, right? It should be Woodbury.
I don't think there is a 453 Old Woodbury.
Yeah. We could put the lot number,
When I was having dinner, I'm like, what?
MBL, so that would probably be a better bet.
Good
so.
catch.
Good, thank you. Wonder who lives there.
So I have
Quite surprised.
Yeah, right. Oops. Sorry about that.
We'll be one of those scammers on real estate, you know?
Out there,
Sell down
squatter.
Southbury. Tim, go ahead.
Yeah, Tim.
Yeah, I know the property, I know it was owned by a couple of contractors. I just wanted to know if there was any soil tests done on it.
Yeah, so let me give you a quick history. It was actually owned before Mike Hutter and his wife, before 2000 by the Metcalfs. And the Metcalfs tried several times to develop it into a buildable lot. They had it perk tested, they all failed. They went back and forth with Dolores Curtis, God rest her soul, who was, there was no way that property was going to be a buildable lot. So then the thought was, let's put a garage there. So they put some gravel in and thinking they could put a garage with no sanitation. That never happened.
Yeah, but my question is, with those contractors, one being a paving contractor, did they store anything there? Was there any kind of spillage of oil or anything else? Have we done our due diligence and tested the soil prior to possibly?
To my knowledge, according to the Metcalfs, they just used gravel. There was never no vehicles were actually ever stored there, nor was the fill unclean to my knowledge. I could get some confirmation, but I'm pretty sure it's clean. We've actually been out there and looked at it.
Yeah, I think they were trying to build a house and
Yeah.
deeps and perks and a gravel, hoping to build.
Yeah, it was only approved for a pole barn.
Right.
Yeah.
It never even went that far. But again, they did have an area where they could put some gravel down just to get in. And that's really, never put any vehicles there. So. Anyway, that's what we're looking for, if you guys.
And we'll, this is a property, one of those properties that will always sit out there that nobody's gonna buy and it'll be taxes owed forever, and puts it into a limbo system, and it's a mess. Anybody, anyone else?
Not for Joe, but a procedural question on the transfer. So we're, so I guess they owe taxes, they're gonna transfer to us in lieu of taxes, and, well, the deed in lieu of foreclosure or something like that. On the sale, which is just gonna be a transfer to Southbury Land Trust, I'm just questioning whether we need an 824 referral to the Planning Commission, because we're now transferring town property. It's not ours right now, and I know it's one transaction, but we're now going to be acquiring and then transferring town property to another entity. And ordinarily, we go through that process.
I believe
thought on
Tom
that.
Kalin looked this over, worked with our attorney, Jim Strube, and they decided to streamline it like this. There was some discussion about submitting it to.
Town council has looked at it,
Oh, yeah.
approved it, and said that
He's all-
this method is.
Yeah, in fact, we had a
okay
different,
with
let me
him.
just go back a piece. I thought what we could do is have the Hutters quit claim it to us, and you folks forgive the taxes. I was told that is not possible.
Can't do that.
Can't do that. Can't do that. So we went down that particular path, and so that was months ago. And we worked more closely with Tom Kalin to come to a process that was acceptable. So that's kind of where we're at now.
And it gets to the land trust. Quick claim it over.
I'd have quit claims. I could show you the other ones that were to the land trust, and then I have the other ones that are to the town, so you can, anyway. We've been trying this for a while, several years we've been looking at this property, so.
Okay, so I think we need to
Thank you, Joe.
formally amend the resolution to read 453 Old Woodbury Road.
Twice.
On that. Do I have,
I make a motion to adopt the resolution as written with the change that Old Waterbury Road read Old Woodbury Road in both instances.
okay. Can I have a second? Made and seconded by Justin. Any other discussion? Hearing none, all in favor signify by saying aye. Aye.
Aye.
Hi.
Any opposed? And it carries. Thank you. Next up, Affordable Housing Special Act Revision. You heard many people speak about this today, earlier in the meeting. I'd like to express one of my concerns about this. I'm not prepared to entertain a vote on making that change tonight. I think we need to have the town attorney look at this. I think we need to get an indication, because what this is doing, when we first did the Pierce Hollow Village, it was in consideration of our seniors. They worked, Pierce Hollow Village people, the nonprofit 501c3, they worked on it. There was a lot of people working behind the scenes on this, attorneys. When it was found there was no money for affordable low-income senior housing, subsidized senior housing like Grace Meadows, just for the record, I know I met out at Pierce Hollow with the commissioner of State of Connecticut Housing, I forget her name. We've met out there. We have been working on this. So it's to say we weren't is not true. And we worked hard on it. I think anybody here that was on the board during that time, there were meetings out there of the need for senior housing, the need to get this done. And unfortunately, there was no money. At that time, we were told that there was money for subsidized low-income housing, multi-generational. And changing this, just by changing this to multi-generational, would make that, in my opinion, make that what it was. Pierce Hollow Village people rejected doing that, because when you heard what was going to be required to be built, what we found was mostly 3-bedroom, a few 2-bedroom, and a sprinkling, only a few 1-bedrooms. And they were not, what they said was, that's not going to help our seniors. That there's not going to be enough 1-bedroom, and they're also not designated for seniors or people with disabilities. My other concern is, should this go forward as a low-income, multi-generational, subsidized housing, number one, what would that mean when it comes, is it a lottery system? And if it's a lottery system, who's that going to benefit? Is it really going to benefit the people that, if it's a lottery system, it's a lottery system. It could be anybody from anywhere in the United States. The other concern I have with it, I think, number one, we're going to have a public hearing once we have more information. I really think we should do a study so that the people of this town understand, if this number of units were built, and number one, would we be near the 830G number that they want towns to get to? I don't think so. Number two, what would this impact be to our school systems? What's the anticipated, there's a way to figure that. What would the impact to our school systems be? And what would that cost to the taxpayers be if this was built out? And if on the 2 and 3 bedrooms, how many children would be in the school system? And what will that, would it trigger something as soon as this is built? Are we out of capacity in the school system? And where do we go? And what's the impact to go further? The people of Southbury who we serve right now, that vote at our elections and came here to live here and bought homes here, what is going to be the impact? And to not know what that impact is not a service to our citizens. Any thoughts?
I heard you say a lot of the, go ahead.
Go ahead, Holly.
Yeah, absolutely. So when we were in earlier discussions with Pierce Hollow Village, and there was, sort of a back and forth about whether it would remain senior housing or multi-generational housing, one of the questions that I asked of the folks there was, when the applications come in, is there any priority given to anybody who currently lives in Southbury or has any ties to Southbury? It is not at all lost on me as a single mom who has been raising her daughter here for 9 years on my sole income, how hard it is to do that. I wholeheartedly can relate to Ms. Granton's public comment. I've lived it myself, and none of this is lost on me. I know exactly what it's like to come home and flip the lights on and they don't turn on. It's not easy. That being said, what I was advised is that they are not even allowed to ask if there is any tie to Southbury. So somebody can apply from anywhere, and it is not that we would necessarily, yes, some folks from Southbury might get some housing in that unit, but it's not like this. These are units that are designated for folks who work here, live here, are teachers here, are coming out of other rentals here. It's literally just that anybody can apply, and they're not able to vet at all if they're related to Southbury. So I struggle a lot with that. Another comment that somebody had shared with me is when they were under the impression that it would be senior housing, I think there is a misunderstanding that this would be similar to Heritage Village. And the comment that I received was that would bring more tax income to our town. And I just want to make sure that folks understand that no taxes would be generated by anybody living in this housing as far as property taxes. This wouldn't generate any property tax income to the town, but it would utilize quite a lot of services. And to Jeff's point, we don't yet know what what that impact is. So I have a lot of concerns around this, especially, like what the impact would be, particularly like on the Gainfield School because of the side of town that it's on. And I think there's just an awful lot of information that needs to be clarified and an awful lot of information that needs to be communicated to residents factually, so that we can have an honest conversation about what this is or what this isn't. Thank you.
Greg?
Has the town had a conversation with anyone from the school district on that, those thoughts?
Before we go too far down that wormhole, folks, from the location of this proposed development, from Personnel Village, you can look across the hill and see a place called Traditions, 200 houses, all 3 and 4 bedrooms. And there was no requirement for any studies about the Region 15 when that went up.
That was actually, for clarification, excuse me, we're having a meeting. For clarification, that was a court order. That was a court order that was ordered that they be able to build that. So that was a little different over there at Traditions. Secondly, Traditions pays, everybody over there pays taxes on it, and I agree with you, but they do have people over there. We have condos, other condos besides Heritage Village. But I think we need to know the impact before we sign, because I do know the town was fighting, at that time, they were fighting what became Traditions in court, and the court ordered that it be allowed to be built. So we didn't exactly have say in that being built or not. So I think that, and another thing I had heard tonight was talk about people who are from New York City coming up to run a business up here, which I assume they're making money on. They're making a living, they're making money, they're coming from New York City. To create affordable housing for someone who's working here from New York City, I don't really think that's what we're trying to do. Tim?
I don't even know what that means.
Well, I really don't think that we're going to get any of your concerns answered tonight, but I think that the only thing that we're looking to do is to approve the rewording from senior housing to multi-generational so we can get the ball rolling.
That will trigger low-income, multi-generational subsidized
You already have
housing.
that. You already have that. You can have anybody go in on any piece of property and develop low-income housing. Kevin Bennett's already done it twice.
This will be subsidized. Kevin Bennett's are not subsidized. It's
30% of his are
They're
830G.
affordable, it's affordable rate. It's not low-income subsidized. When you go to the senior housing, Grace Meadows, it's based on your income. The low affordable housing is based on a number for affordable, there's a formula, but it's not subsidized, and the construction's not subsidized.
Jeff, you've mentioned this information that Pierce Hollow had about the 2 and 3 bedrooms and these numbers. Can we all get that, please? Can we get that information so we can review it?
But
No?
we need to review that.
Yeah. Let's-
Before we make a vote on this, I'm not ready to vote to change that. And I'm not ready to vote.
I
the
think every
citizens
other
of this-
town around us has done it, and I think affordable housing is needed in this town. We only have 1.48% of affordable housing in Southbury. It's state mandated that there's 10% of inventory, and I don't think we should be kicking the can down the road any further on this. We're only looking to reword it from senior to multi-generational.
So what I'm hearing Selectman O'Neill say is he is in favor of low-income subsidized multi-generational housing.
That's not what I said.
That's what changing this
I'm
will do.
looking for multi-generational housing, and there's no better place than Pierce Hollow Village in Southbury Training School.
Changing the legislation will change it to multi-generational, low-income subsidized housing. That's what the change in this will do.
I don't believe that to be.
Well, you don't believe, but are you ready to vote on that tonight? Did you know?
I'm ready to vote on it
Because you
tonight,
know.
yeah. I'm ready to vote on it.
Because you
tonight.
know that's what.
No,
it will-
I know that this town needs affordable housing.
But you don't know
As-
that that's
as
changing this.
You saw the people that were in here.
But you don't know is changing the statute. You don't know that will change, this change in that language will cause it to be low-income, multi-generational. That's what Pierce Hollow was.
Pierce Hollow was Senior housing.
Low-income of subsidized senior housing, yes. Subsidized. If this changes this language, it's subsidized low-income, multi-generational housing.
Not all of
you
it,
know-
30% of it.
No, not 30%, the whole thing, the whole project.
It's a 100% project, which is.
100% of the project.
Which is exactly what we need.
So I don't think you really know.
This
what
one
you're dealing with here.
project would get us 25% of the way to getting our zoning back. One project. And you wouldn't even see it from the street.
Do we know what services need to be provided?
Same stuff that was provided when families lived up there. Who were my friends growing up, Jeff? You know them too. Lyles, we knew a ton of people that lived over there. Zach, Pollard, Pratt, come on.
And our schools? Do we know the impact to our schools?
Jeff, we have room. We were talking about closing 2 of them a couple years ago. You were here for that, so was Jason.
And now they're talking about building a new one.
Well, you're gonna have
Combining
to
it.
at some point. I mean, they're dated, but that has nothing to do with our current capacity. We have capacity.
I think we need to know what this impact is.
Well, how are we gonna get there? What's the plan? Because we don't do anything tonight, we lose a year. We lose a year. So what are we gonna do with that year? What's the plan?
And also, no matter, even with this, anybody can still bring something in ahead of that number. We're not going to be out of the 830G. We'll still be, still zoning someone could still propose that number.
Until we get to 800, we're subject to 830G. If we get to 800 only under 830G, we get 3,200 apartments in town. That's the math. It's important to get 100% projects done as soon as possible.
Well,
one thing I'll note for the next time this comes up on our agenda, everyone keeps referring to Special Act 13-23. Special Act 13-23 was amended in 2016 with Public Act 16-1. What this statute does is, and this was designed, the whole statute was designed for Pierce Hollow Village. It gives the town a piece of property, Pierce Hollow Village, and that property reverts back to the state if the town doesn't use it for housing, sells it, or leases it to anyone. But there's an exception in the statute, and what we're talking about tonight, I don't know if people understand, we're talking about the exception in the statute. The property comes to the town, it goes back to the state if you lease it to someone, except the town is permitted to lease it to a nonprofit for senior housing purposes. And that was written in there primarily for the Pierce Hollow development, which the town got behind at the time. All the boards and commissions, our board, despite some comments made, we've lobbied the state, we've written to the Department of Housing, we've met with the Pierce Hollow folks over the years, and have spent a lot of time trying to get that happening. Just the funds dried up. And that's unfortunate because there was a very substantial need for that project. But 16-1, and I do think folks need to look at it, which may inform this discussion, is, it's not just changing a word. 16-1 adds a section about low-income housing credits and low-income senior housing. And it says that entity you lease to can then sublease to get these sorts of benefits and whatnot. And I think all of that needs to be looked at together when determining what words you're trying to change and why you're trying to change it. If we're just looking to give the town more flexibility because this is all, at the end of the day, it's town property. This isn't Traditions, with due respect. That's private property. The developer came in, owned it, made an application, built a subdivision, built, a common interest community. That's not what this is. This is town-owned property that the town can then lease to someone. So this is a town interest. This is what the town wants to do, the town project. That's why we get into this. When I think about this, that's why I say I want to hear from people as to what they think, because this isn't just a developer coming in building private property. This is a town land that we would own, that we are now deciding, as our boards are deciding, who we're going to enter into a lease with to develop a project and what that project looks like. And we would always have control over that. So that's the that's sort of the backstop, right? The town always has control. We always have the ability to pick one developer over another, or something like that. But that's sort of what we're talking about. That's why this is different than some other things. When we're talking about the change, if we were to ask for a change in the statute, and I think you're beyond this legislative deadline anyways this year, but if you're talking about a change, one of the things I think the town should consider is not closing the door on anything. If we want to give the town options as to what types of developments we want there, and we want to add in multi-generational, we should have that discussion. But we're doing it to the exclusion of senior. We want to take out the word senior, and I'm not sure why we would want to do that. Why wouldn't we include both? And hey, if funding showed up a year from now, why wouldn't we jump on that? So I think there's some other things to be considered there, and I think there's a whole another public act that hasn't been considered in this discussion that would need to be. And I do think, I'd like to see that information too. I vaguely remember it from years ago, like we're going back, I think maybe our first term, Justin, when this was more prevalent at that time. But that's to the data they had, because they had compiled lots of data on the whole topic. And I think we should have serious discussions about this issue. But I don't think we should just come into a meeting and say we're going to amend legislation to do X for some development that we haven't really thought out yet and don't have a lot of answers to a lot of questions. So that's where I'm at.
So my suggestion is we keep this on the agenda for further discussion at other meetings. We gather some more information about what it would take, what it would mean. I also remind the board that that property is contaminated. So one of the things that we, as a board, wanted to make sure was whoever was going in there was Pierce Hollow, that they had funding available to clean it up. And that funding would be committed, because the town is not looking to take that property unless there's funds available to clean it up. Last I heard, I think between 1.2 and 1.5 million to clean it up before we took it. So I don't think we're really ready to make that change just to move forward tonight. But I think that's what we should be doing. We need to do our due diligence. And then I think at some point, we need to have a public hearing.
Excuse me, Jeff, I really have to ask. The Board of Selectmen goes to extensive lengths to remain absolutely silent when the public speaks. And all I ask is that you do the same. When we are speaking, I need to be able to listen carefully and critically, because I listen to each one of you carefully and critically. And it is such an insult to me for you to interrupt my meeting with these people to get this talked about. It's really serious, and I take it seriously, and I'd appreciate the silence. Thank you.
Thank you. So I move to table this discussion, keep it on the agenda in the future, and we'll do some research.
I agree with that.
All in favor? Aye?
Aye.
Opposed?
Aye.
Nay.
You're a nay?
I'm a nay.
Tim O'Neill is a nay. Thank you. Greg, we added to the new business
Thank you very
discussion.
much for doing that. I literally just need a few minutes. Give me a moment.
I just want to let you know, Greg, that I have, one of the problems with this trail and the lights, part of the problem is that there's a sightline problem. So DEP reached out to me wanting to know if I would okay it. My suggestion to them is, before we okay lights on a road that's doing, there's always an outlier, 45, 50 miles an hour, I'm concerned with a false sense of security of going across. My suggestion is that the state fix the sight line, along with considering the lights. I think it's a holistic approach. I have not heard back from them yet, but I'm trying to, lights alone, if you don't have a good sight line on that road and you have a light that says, I'm blinking or whatever, it's not gonna help you out if nobody's paying attention. At least if the sight line can be fixed and people can at least see people there, and then you had the light as a warning, I think that would work better than just arbitrarily. But that's what I've reached out to DEP about.
Those are they're the same folks that would receive our request, you know, if we wrote them, per se. So let me, I guess, take a step back. I'm making an assumption that what was presented at public comment is accurate in terms of, or I'm sorry, the emails that we received with contact information to DOT, and that was sort of my first question. Is I thought it was pretty awesome that somebody went through the effort to figure out a name, had a conversation with them, understood, you know, based on that conversation what was needed. Do we agree with those are the correct people to be talking to?
DEEP is the people that control the crossing. So we could make we can ask the state to put they say, we're okay with putting the lights up. And they would put the lights up. I mean, it's kind of comical. They do stuff without asking us. I don't know why they don't just do what they want anyway.
So I guess so I appreciate what you're saying, you know, that's why I wanted to talk about it. Does it seem unreasonable to, I mean, why can't we just include that as part of the letter, is that is our recommendation based on our conversations? And, you know, Jason had said, and I think others had said is reasonable, talk to our police, talk to our public works, if they have other input, that we recommend that we write that letter with that whole set of information, you know, someone explaining it. Somebody came to the public, this is what they had asked for, we think that's reasonable, but based on further conversation, this is really the core of the issue here, the sight lines. So we do recommend crossing lights because we think it's a great idea, but really to solve the problem, this is what we recommend you do.
I can send that message that, you know, along with the sightline improvement. I think that's what my email basically said. You need a holistic, I mean, the problem is the sightline is the first problem. And I'm not saying you wouldn't put up lights, but if you didn't have a sightline problem, you wouldn't be anywhere near the problem. So the problem is the sightline, let's fix that.
Right.
I don't know if they're.
And that's just at 67 we're talking about.
Right.
And then, did 188 come up at all?
Evidently, the sightline at 188 is not bad. So.
But as far as adding,
I don't know why they don't want.
But you had mentioned, you know, don't forget Larkin crosses 188 as well. I went on, whatever, Google Street View, and you could see where 67 actually has pedestrian crossing lines, though the 188 crossing doesn't even have that.
Yeah. I could suggest that too, that they do all of them.
So that's it, do they just need a phone call from you? Do they need a letter from the Board of Selectmen? That's the part I didn't quite, what do we need to get this done so that somebody who came from the public, this is an easy one to me.
I'd like to get them to fix the sightline.
Right.
And that's what the email was to fix the sightline, because that's the complaint, is the sightline is bad, that's why we need the lights. Well, if we have a bad sightline, then let's fix the sightline. You can add the lights too, but let's fix the problem. You know, let's not, a false sense of that light has been activated. I mean, and then not have a sight line to know that car is recognized you.
I agree, but there's nothing there right now, so a light would be 100% better than having nothing there right now. And from what Ms. Richards said, I think the request only needs to come from this board, and then we could work on the light and the sight line. And I think 188 should also have lights, so the request should go in there.
So let me push DEP and see if they follow up with them and agree that they're going to do 188 with lights, fix the sight line at 67, and put lights up there so that it's done properly. You know, I mean.
Yeah, I totally agree. I don't know how much control we have over them,
well,
but.
So we got a letter from Deep. We got a letter on March 14th from Tammy Talbot. Department of Environmental Protection supporting the CT Horse Council request, that we consider working with DOT and installing a safe crossway light for pedestrians and horses across the trail. So I guess I don't understand the DOT process. Like, if we were to make a request to DOT to put in a crosswalk, I doubt they bring out their construction vehicles the next day and put in a crosswalk. I assume they do some traffic analysis, or it's their road. At the end of the day, it's their liability. It's their responsibility. It's their cost. It's their road. So if they don't think it's appropriate, they won't put it in. So we want to be careful in the request to make sure we outline for them our concerns. But I think we could send them a request saying, hey, we've seen this and we're kicking it up to you. We'd be in favor of a crosswalk there, but we think that the issue may be sightlines, and take a look at that, and let's get our people together to go out there and figure it out. But it sounds like, from everything we're getting from various places, including this lady from Deep, it sounds like they're just looking for like a request from the town to DOT. And if that's it, then I feel like, well, why not just kick it up to them? And say,
Well, I asked them to fix the sightlines, because that's,
Yeah, but we're trying to separate the two. I see what you're saying. I think what Jason's getting at is, someone came up and said, can you put in a pedestrian light for it? Can you, we went and we asked, can we get a pedestrian light? They said the town needs to ask for it. So all they're asking for us to do is to put this in. And I see what you're doing, and it's thoughtful, and it's more complete, and it gets to the core of the issue. So I like that.
I mean, the light is only going to be a blinking, it's
Yeah.
not a pedestrian crossing.
But we did it here in town too, after,
Yeah.
some incidents.
I have some sympathy for this. I've ridden a horse across Main Street North on a Saturday morning, and it's not a, it's a scary experience.
For what it's worth, if you take a look at it and go by, you see that the crossing there on 67, I took a look, and I did talk to Katie a little bit about it to kind of confirm what I thought I saw. And it's a little narrow strip, and whether you're walking or you're riding a horse, you are riding right alongside that road with, just a couple feet. And the impression is that it is, it's dangerous and it's tough when you got a horse to deal with in those conditions. So I want to make sure.
So why don't we reach out to DEP again?
Okay.
I'll make some phone calls and say, let's meet out there and see what the problem and get it fixed. Just nothing, I'm nervous about apprehensive about putting up a light with a sight line issue.
I get it. You're coming around a bend, and at the last second, you see the blinking lights and a horse is in the middle of 67. Okay.
Yeah.
All right, let's see can we circle back next meeting?
So is it the request, Jason, is it to DEP or is it to Department of Transportation?
I'm not sure. Everything we're getting
From DEP.
is asking us to make a request to DOT.
Correct.
That's what Ms. Richards said, DOT.
So I think, so I guess reach out to DOT, not
Yeah,
DEP.
well, DEP reached out to me also, because of the trail. It's kind of a mix of two. So DOT,
Yeah, I think they run the park.
DEP runs the park. I'm not sure if the sight line is under the jurisdiction of the DOT or if it's part of the trail.
Yeah, that's what I was sort of asking. I mean, that's certainly what the folks who spoke to us said, that's what they found.
But it was
in any
odd that I
case-
made that suggestion to actually fix the sight line, and they didn't want to.
Right, but that's where I sort of feel like if we can satisfy the request that was made to us, then we've done our part,
Let's see if we can get
See what we
them,
can do.
the state. My experience with the state has been less than stellar. So they love to put it on to us, but when you're asking them to do something to make it right, there always seems a blockade. So let me see if I can get get them to see if they'll do something with the sight line. And at least then they're on notice. That's a problem too, is once they're put on notice about a safety issue, they've got to consider something.
Okay.
So will you put the request in to put in the lights and fixed the sightline?
If to fix the sight line when they put in, I will talk to them about it before I say that's the way I'm gonna go. I gotta talk to them.
Well, can we just
If they
circle back
say-
next meeting and just have another brief conversation? That's all.
Yeah.
All right. I'm sorry, I didn't mean to.
Oh, that's okay. You
Yeah.
didn't.
Okay. Anything else on that? All right, what are we up to? First Selectmen's report, I've got that right here. Republican and Democratic presidential primaries are coming up. Absentee ballots for the presidential primaries are available in the town clerk's office during their regular office hours and must be returned by the April 1st deadline. Early voting for all the primaries will take place on March 26th, 27th, 28th, and 30th between the hours of 10 a.m. and 6 p.m. Please note that in order to vote during the early voting period, an individual will need to register to vote and enroll in a political party by noon of the previous day to be eligible to vote the next day. The in-person presidential primary election will take place on April 2nd. The deadline to register to vote, join a party is April 1st at noon to vote in person. I encourage everyone to exercise their right to vote and to visit our website for information, dates, detailed information, and your polling locations. Please check your polling locations because there's always people are at the wrong poll, and it really they're not happy. I would let you know that I attended a leadership Greater Water. The Waterbury Regional Chamber invited me to participate in a panel discussion yesterday for the Leadership Greater Waterbury Class of 2024. CEOs from 4 different sized municipalities were selected for the panel. It was Waterbury Mayor Paul, I'll try to say this correctly, Pernitzky, for large city, Naugatuck Mayor Pete Hess for a smaller city, Prospect Mayor Bob Chatfield for a small town, and me as first selectman representing a medium-sized town. The purpose of the panel was to inform students of the diverse types of municipal government we use and discuss the importance of being a COG member. COG plays a significant role in our government because the municipalities in our region are intertwined, and it allows member cities and towns to support each other. It was well received. It was a pretty nice program. Employee benefits, the town of Southbury is now offering a 20% discount on all park and recreation program at the Southbury resident rate to both part-time and full-time employees. The discount applies to every program, including camp, pool membership, sports leagues, and classes. We hope employees will take advantage of all that the Park and Rec Department has to offer. The spring extravaganza and candy hunt will take place this Saturday, rain or shine. I understand it's gonna rain.
It's raining. Where's the candy hunt gonna be if it's raining?
I think we're going into, the event's new location the new location is, we used to go to Ballantyne, and the new location will be at the Southbury Parks and Rec Building and the neighboring Pomperog Elementary School gym, so we can go inside the gym, I guess, that's the idea. While the event is free of charge, we are suggesting participants bring a non-perishable food donation for the Southbury Food Bank. So if you're going, please consider our food bank when you come. Reports from liaisons. Justin.
Economic Development met last night. Jeff, you and I were at the recent ribbon cutting for the new art studio, Vicinanza Gallery in Heritage Village. Fascinating place, couple different artists presenting there. They've got some performances coming up there as well, so check it out if you get a chance. This weekend is the 35th anniversary of Senior Ponchos. They started celebrating tonight. There's a ribbon cutting tomorrow at 11:30. If anybody would like to come over. Max 365 Fitness just opened up in the old Rev Fitness space down below Adam Broderick's hair salon. There are some, Subway just reopened under new ownership. And Kevin is still being coy about who the new retailer that is coming to the Southbury Green is. I did find out that they're going to be going in the old Yankee Candle space, but the lease is not 100% executed yet, so it really cannot be discussed. So cross your fingers and hope for something fun. What else? That was about it from them. IPOC did not meet since our last meeting. The Pool Oversight Committee has not met since our last meeting. Strategic Planning did meet last week, and how was that worded? Now that we are almost done with the budget season, they're asking if they can come and follow up on their the review that they did for us, and also chat with us about what future projects we may look for them to take care of at one of our near future meetings. That's all I got.
Thank you. Jason?
The library board met last week. Couple of things. They received a significant bequest, and they put it in their fund with the Connecticut Community Foundation. The Friends had their donation day last week in preparation, this past Saturday, in preparation for their book sale, which will be May 2nd through the 5th. So that's coming up. The library is working with the health department on some programming upcoming. April is National Library Month, so there's going to be some things going on with that and information coming out, marketing and whatnot, so there'll be more news as the month goes on. They fixed some lighting in the fireplace room, which we all went over and checked out, and it's very nice. So next time you're in the library, go check out their new display cases. And the other thing is, the big thing they have coming up is Saturday, May 18th, they're having a spring open house. They did this last year for the first time. There's going to be there'll probably be some music, ice cream, food, and they're going to be dedicating painting that they had received. I talked about it a few months ago. It's on the, when you go to the library, you see it on the staircase on the side, and they're going to do like a little dedication ceremony. So that's going to be May 18th. More information to follow on that. And my other boards did not meet since our last meeting.
Thank you. Greg?
Only group to meet this meeting, since last meeting was Senior Services Commission. Just preface, keep in mind, the commission has a new chair, vice chair, and relatively new senior services director, and it was really an excellent meeting. The commission had a lengthy, meaningful discussion on how the commission sees itself, the role it should play in the community, programs it could offer in conjunction with senior services, and working with Director Corcoran. I think we're going to continue to see this discussion. We'll see it continue over several meetings, and really should be looking forward to seeing some positive action come out of the Senior Services Commission. So more good stuff to come.
Okay. Nothing with the Energy Task Force?
They didn't meet.
Okay.
Yep.
Tim?
Conservation Commission and the Community Task Force have not met since our last meeting. Park and Rec, you've already discussed the spring extravaganza. They are looking for volunteers. Anybody that does want to volunteer, if they could show up at 9 o'clock, that would be helpful. They are having a sensory-friendly activities to take place between 10 and 11. General admission, again, it's free of charge. General admission is from 11 to 2. The candy hunts will start sharply at 11:30. There's going to be some spring and holiday themed crafts and educational information booths, and some decorating spring scenes for photo opportunities with the bunny, and some photo booths with props. And again, if you can bring a non-perishable food collection for the Southbury Food Bank, that would be greatly appreciated.
Thank you. Selectman Sullivan, are you still there with us?
I'm here.
Yep.
So Thank you. So Region 15 did have a regular meeting on March 11th. Again, just like us, they're in the throes of the budget season, so that's a huge part of their agenda. But one treat is that the high school students are putting on a production of Wonka this weekend. So some folks were there representing the student performance group. So for anybody that's interested, Friday, Saturday, and Sunday, you can see our students perform Willy Wonka at the high school this coming weekend. I did have the opportunity to have a phone call with Chairman Manzo, which was always nice to touch base this week, and just some exciting things. A lot of us have seen kind of their capital projects that they've been working on. She was excited to share with me that the construction of the new tennis courts has begun. They have broken ground on the new tennis courts over there, and hope that those will be done pretty quickly and that they'll be usable for the season. Also, the new storage shed at the football field has already, also the groundbreaking has been done. I believe the footings have been poured, so that project shouldn't take too long at all. So it's really just a nice evolution of, some of us that walked through some of those projects that needed to be done, and seeing them coming to fruition now is great. And then the pool also is on track, and they're moving along with that project as well. So lots of good stuff happening in the region.
Okay, thank you. Motion to adjourn.
So moved.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye, and we're adjourned. Thank you.